President Trump is breaking with convention tradition this week. He'll make appearances on every night of the RNC, leading up to his full remarks on Thursday night from the White House. Let's bring in CBS News 2020 campaign reporters Nicole Sganga and LaCrai Mitchell. Nicole has been following the Trump campaign, and LaCrai is on the ground at the convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to you both. Nicole, let me start with you. Why does the Trump campaign want to show as much of the president as possible? I think I can guess.
Well, as you well know, Elaine, not only is this president the commander-in-chief, he's also the entertainer-in-chief. You'll recall that before he became president and was a New York City business mogul, he spent over a dozen seasons hosting The Apprentice. And actually, the creator of The Apprentice, Mark Burnett, is working on the Republican National Convention festivities as a consultant who is leading in that production. In addition to that, we saw the president make an appearance today. Weren't sure if it was going to be a quick appearance on site at the GOP convention during the roll call in Charlotte, North Carolina. He spoke for 55 minutes. And what we'll also see, this week, in addition to the president surfacing every single day, is a number of members of the Trump family. So Donald Trump Jr. will be speaking today. We'll hear later in the week from Eric Trump, from Ivanka Trump, of course, from the First Lady, from Tiffany Trump as well. We'll also be hearing from a number of close Trump allies. These are politicians who made their careers by tying themselves close to the president. A rising star, Kim Klacik, who is a congressional candidate currently running for Representative Elijah Cummings' seat in Baltimore, in that area. We actually just got some of the speech excerpts now from the Trump campaign. She'll talk a little bit about safety in our neighborhoods. Quote, "We want jobs and innovation, like tapping the potential of the Port of Baltimore to create manufacturing jobs for Americans." So she'll be speaking tonight. We'll also hear from Sean Parnell, who's a congressional candidate in Pennsylvania 18, going up against Democrat Connor Lamb there. He'll talk about his grandfather, according to these speech excerpts, who was a lifelong Union Democrat, trying to convince Democrats to come over to the Republican side. But again, these are politicians that are very close to the president. You heard Nancy Cortez speaking about how a lot of vulnerable Republicans in vulnerable Senate races will not be heard tonight. Lastly, Elaine, not on stage, no former U.S. presidents, including former President George Bush. He will not be in attendance at any of the festivities this week. A source close to the Bush family tells CBS News that is because some of the leftover animosity from the 2016 race, where then candidate Donald Trump headed off against, of course, Jeb Bush.
Right. Yes, we all remember very well. That was very heated, contentious back and forth between Jeb Bush and Donald Trump. All right, so LaCrai, it's been fascinating to watch how these campaigns have navigated in this new world and tried to adjust. Tell us about what's been happening in Charlotte. What's the scene like there at the convention?
I'll tell you, Elaine, it definitely doesn't feel like it would, I believe, if it were a full-scale convention. With restaurants packed and sort of the city teeming a bit. It's not really that feeling. And outside of the convention center where I was today, as the official business was taking place, it was actually pretty uneventful and quiet. When I left outside of that barricaded area where media was throughout the event, there were a couple of Trump supporters, and they had flags, and they were wearing shirts. And there was some back and forth that took place with them and other demonstrators, and it was unclear if they were Trump supporters. But throughout the weekend, you have seen some demonstrations that have taken place overnight, Friday night, Saturday night, and even last night, where there have been some arrests that the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department reported, and also people chanting and getting together and coming face-to-face with police officers in some cases. But for the most part, I think about an event that I attended last night where you had a couple of advocacy groups that are here based in Charlotte, and they met up and projected pictures of people who are unemployed and have been unemployed since the coronavirus pandemic really struck. And they said that that form of protest for them, projecting these pictures of unemployed workers who have really been suffering throughout this time, was their form of protest. And it wasn't as high key as some of the images of protesters and demonstrators that we sometimes see, when they come face to face with police officers. But to this group, it was important. And they said that it was important that Republican officials think about this as they meet this week and throughout the week. And they're talking about, making this country, in what they would say, making this country better or great again. But I can't stress enough that the scene here, it definitely doesn't feel like a full convention.
Yeah, I imagine not, LaCrai. Well, let me ask you, LaCrai, so Republicans say that they plan to focus on a more positive message for the country this week. How do they plan to do that?
Well, throughout the week, you'll see that there are more than 70 speakers that are scheduled to give, or nearly 70 speakers that are scheduled to give remarks in honoring the great American story. And that's the overall theme for this year's RNC, honoring the great American story. And there are also daily themes throughout the week that the campaign announced, including celebrating a land of promise, a land of opportunity, a land of heroes, and a land of greatness. And I think what it really boils down to is you're going to hear messages from Republican leaders and from other guests that they've invited. And depending on where you fall and stand on some of these key issues that they'll discuss, will be your take on whether or not it's a positive message. I can't help but think that I'm sure that criminal justice reform will come up this week, as the president touts regularly the First Step Act and the role that he played in that. I have a feeling that, we will definitely hear about coronavirus response throughout different states, as he mentioned briefly in his remarks today. And so I think what you're going to find is that voters and supporters of the president may find the messaging this week very positive. And I dare say that people who are not fans of him might not think that the messaging this week is that positive. So it depends on where you fall on some of these key issues.
All right, Nicole, Sganga and LaCrai Mitchell. In another universe, our whole red and blue team would be right there with you, LaCrai, covering this convention. Nevertheless, wonderful to see you both. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.